Today I will sign a series of historic executive orders. As Commander-in-Chief, I have no higher responsibility than to defend our country from threats and invasions.
The deportation of undocumented immigrants under President Donald Trump's second term has unfolded as a transformative and multifaceted campaign, reshaping America's immigration landscape through aggressive policies, legal battles, and profound societal repercussions. This effort, rooted in Trump's 2024 campaign promises, represents one of the most ambitious enforcement operations in U.S. history, targeting millions while igniting debates over legality, morality, and national identity.
President Trump is starting his second term with a hard stance on immigration. Tonight, he unveiled those 10 plans, those 10 executive orders, all about border and immigration policy. And we can go through some of them real quick here. The big one, Trump is declaring a national emergency at the border. He's also ending the catch and release program, which allows detainees to go free until their court dates. Third, he's bringing back the Remain in Mexico policy, which would require migrants to get asylum in Mexico until their court dates here.
Trump's administration began with a pivotal series of executive orders aimed at dismantling Biden-era immigration policies. The Protecting the American People Against Invasion order revoked protections for asylum seekers, expanded expedited removals, and mobilized federal agencies like the DEA and FBI to enforce immigration laws. A parallel order securing our borders declared a national emergency, authorizing military deployment to complete the border wall and repurpose facilities like Guantanamo Bay for migrant detention. These policies prioritize the removal of inadmissible and removable aliens, particularly those labeled threats to public safety or national security, though definitions broadened to include minor offenses like traffic violations under the Locke-and-Riley Act. The administration also revoked humanitarian parole programs for Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans, canceled asylum appointments via the CBP One app, and reinstated the controversial Remain in Mexico policy, forcing asylum seekers to wait in dangerous conditions. By January 2025, over 1.4 million migrants with temporary protections faced sudden uncertainty, including DACA recipients and those awaiting court hearings, amid a backlog of 3.6 million cases.
Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, says the search for immigrants in the country illegally led to 969 arrests today.
The scale of Trump's deportation plan required unprecedented resources. ICE's detention capacity surged from 41,000 to 110,000 beds, funded by a $27 billion congressional allocation. Military bases like Fort Bliss and Buckley Space Force Base were converted into detention centers, while Guantanamo Bay was repurposed to hold 30,000 high-priority migrants. Expedited removals, previously limited to border regions, were expanded nationwide, allowing deportations without court hearings for those unable to prove 2 years of continuous U.S. residence.
This is our nation's law enforcement judicial process. The scales of justice are equally applied to everybody. We want transparency on it.
Enforcement tactics grew aggressive. ICE raids targeted sensitive locations like schools, churches, and hospitals, previously off-limits under Biden-era guidelines. In January 2025 alone, ICE arrested 3,500 individuals, including collateral arrests of non-targets found near suspects, such as a U.S. veteran detained during a Newark raid. The administration also deputized state and local law enforcement under Section 287 of the Immigration and Nationality Act, empowering them to act as immigration officers.
There's so much uncertainty, not only, around the possibility of being picked up or the possibility of accidentally being included in these mass raids.
The human impact has been devastating. Families like Nettie's, a Venezuelan mother who trekked through the Darien Gap only to have her asylum appointment canceled, now face legal limbo. Over 4.5 million U.S. citizen children have at least one undocumented parent, risking family separation and economic destabilization. Communities like Chicago's Lincoln United Methodist Church canceled Spanish-language services, fearing ICE raids, while schools implemented sanctuary teams to protect students.
reassuring families, saying in a letter, principals and school-based staff have received detailed guidance on protecting students' rights, responding to ICE interactions, and supporting students whose parents or guardians may be detained during the school day. Not to let any students off the bus if they see any agents at bus stops.
Protests erupted nationwide. In Los Angeles, thousands blocked the Hollywood freeway with banners declaring, "Nobody is illegal," while Houston saw 20,000 march with flags from Mexico, El Salvador, and Honduras. In Charleston, South Carolina, police arrested 7 protesters demanding an end to raids, reflecting grassroots defiance against policies labeled xenophobic by critics.
Here to stand up for the people that are in the shadows, that can't speak for themselves, that can't be out here in these streets protesting, and not just that, but showing their voice, because they do exist, and they exist in this country. Because my mother came here and she sacrificed for who I am, for what my daughter is, and for what many of us are now.
Trump's policies face significant legal challenges. The ACLU sued over the shutdown of the CBP One app, arguing it violated migrants' right to seek asylum. Over 20 states, including California, challenged the administration's attempt to end birthright citizenship, with a federal judge temporarily halting the order as unconstitutional. The Flores settlement, which limits child detention, is also under threat, raising concerns about indefinite family separations.
So we had to go back to 1798, and it gives you the power to target and dismantle every migrant criminal network operating on American soil, and you can get them out, and there's no problem.
Courts grapple with the administration's use of the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, a wartime statute, to justify mass deportations in peacetime, while denaturalization efforts target minor application errors by naturalized citizens. These legal clashes underscore the tension between executive power and constitutional safeguards.
The surge in illegal immigration over the last few years will increase gross domestic product by about $9 trillion cumulatively over the next decade, reduce the deficit by about $1 trillion. These are very significant, and it's only part of the illegal immigrant population.
The economic costs are staggering. Detaining and deporting 1 million migrants annually could cost $88 billion, straining the $10 billion DHS budget. Industries reliant on immigrant labor, like agriculture and hospitality, warn of crippling shortages. For example, Mississippi poultry plants raided in 2025 continue to struggle with labor gaps, despite Trump's crackdown. Meanwhile, private prison companies like GEO Group saw stock prices surge, capitalizing on expanded detention contracts.
I will launch the largest deportation program in American history. And I think we'll break that record. Not that I want to break it, but we have no choice. We have to get all of these criminals, these murderers and drug dealers and everything. We're getting them out.
Globally, Trump's policies sparked diplomatic friction. Colombia initially barred deportation flights, calling the treatment of migrants degrading, while Mexico built tent shelters in border cities like Ciudad Juarez to house returnees. Guatemala and Honduras launched similar reintegration programs, though many migrants face dangers upon return, including gang violence and political persecution. States like California and New York resist through sanctuary laws, while Iowa and Texas cooperate with federal mandates. The administration's success hinges on court rulings, congressional funding, and societal tolerance for raids that could affect 14 million U.S. citizens living with undocumented relatives. The long-term impact remains uncertain. While Trump vows to deport 15 to 20 million, exceeding the estimated 11 million undocumented population, logistical and legal hurdles persist. Public opinion is divided. 56% of voters support mass deportations, yet majorities also favor protections for refugees and mixed-status families. Deportation isn't just about laws, it's about people. Families torn apart, parents risking everything for safety, children left wondering if their home will still be there tomorrow. America's story has always been one of contradictions. A nation built by immigrants now wrestling with how to protect its borders without losing its soul. The fight to balance safety and kindness isn't just policy, it's about who we choose to be. Will we let fear build walls, or will we find strength in our shared humanity? The answer lies in the quiet courage of teachers shielding students from raids, in churches opening their doors to the vulnerable, and in every voice demanding fairness. This story isn't finished. It's written by all of us, in courtrooms, voting booths, and the choices we make every day. The question remains, what legacy will we leave? If this journey through America's struggle with deportation moved you, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell to stay connected. The conversation doesn't end here. It's just beginning.